Chipmakers are printing money right now, and I mean literally billions of dollars in pure profit. But here's the thing. This isn't just about selling more chips. Something way bigger is happening. And if you want to understand why companies like Nvidia are becoming more valuable than entire countries, you need to understand what's actually going on behind the scenes. So let's start with the obvious part. AI is everywhere now. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. All these models need massive computing power to run. And that computing power? It comes from chips. Specifically, graphics processing units, or GPUs, which are way better at AI calculations than regular computer processors. When demand for AI skyrockets, demand for GPUs skyrockets too. It's supply and demand 101, right? But that's only half the story, and honestly, it's the boring half. The real reason chipmakers are making absolutely wild profits comes down to something called a moat. And no, I'm not talking about the water around a castle. A moat in business is basically an advantage that's so strong that competitors can't easily copy it. And chipmakers have built the biggest moat in tech right now. Let me explain. Making chips is insanely complicated. We're talking about fitting billions of transistors onto a piece of silicon the size of your fingernail. The process requires specialized equipment, years of engineering expertise, and facilities that cost tens of billions of dollars to build. It's not something you can just decide to do tomorrow. It takes years. Nvidia understood this better than anyone. They didn't just make good GPUs. They built an entire ecosystem around their chips. Their CUDA software platform makes it really easy for programmers to write code that runs on Nvidia hardware. Once you've written thousands of lines of code for CUDA, switching to a competitor's chips becomes a massive headache. You'd basically have to rewrite everything. So even if a competitor made a slightly better chip, companies would stick with Nvidia because the switching cost is too high. This is why Nvidia has captured something like 90% of the AI chip market. It's not that their chips are dramatically better than everyone else's. It's that they built a lock-in. And that lock-in is worth billions of dollars. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The profit margins on these chips are insane. When Nvidia sells a GPU for, say, $10,000, the actual cost to manufacture it might be a few $100s. That means they're making a profit margin of over 90% on each chip sold. Compare that to a typical tech company, which might have margins of 30 to 40%. Chipmakers are operating in a completely different universe. And right now, demand is so high that they can barely keep up. Data centers are desperate for AI chips. They need them to train models, to run inference, to power the AI services that millions of people use every day. Companies are willing to pay premium prices because the alternative is falling behind in the AI race. If you're a cloud provider and you don't have enough GPU capacity, you're losing customers to competitors who do. So you've got this perfect storm. You've got massive demand. You've got supply constraints because chips take forever to make. You've got high profit margins because of the complexity and the moat that Nvidia has built. And you've got customers who are basically willing to pay whatever it takes because they need these chips to compete. This is why Nvidia's earnings are so crazy right now. In their last quarter, they made more money than they made in the entire previous year. Their data center division, which sells AI chips, grew by over 200% year over year. These aren't normal growth numbers. These are numbers you see when an industry is fundamentally shifting. But there's something else happening too, and this is important. The chipmakers aren't just benefiting from demand. They're also benefiting from a shift in how companies think about computing. For decades, the computing industry was built around the idea of general-purpose processors. You'd buy a CPU that could do anything reasonably well. But AI changed that equation. AI workloads are different. They benefit from specialized hardware. A GPU is better at AI than a CPU. A TPU, which is Google's custom AI chip, might be even better for certain tasks. This means companies are now buying specialized chips instead of just buying general-purpose processors. And specialized chips have higher margins because they're harder to make and there's less competition. Now, I should mention that this situation isn't going to last forever. Other companies are working on their own AI chips. AMD is pushing hard. Intel is trying to catch up. Google, Amazon, and Meta are all building custom chips optimized for their own workloads. Eventually, competition will increase, margins will compress, and growth will slow down. But that's not happening yet. Right now, Nvidia and other chip makers are in this incredible sweet spot where they have a technological advantage, a moat that's hard to cross, and more demand than they can supply. And that's why their earnings are so insane. The broader lesson here is about understanding where the real value is in tech. It's not always with the flashy AI company that's making the headlines. Sometimes the real money is with the companies that provide the infrastructure. Chipmakers are to AI what oil refineries are to cars. They're not as sexy, but they're absolutely essential. And right now, they're making a fortune. If you want to keep up with how AI is changing technology and business, hit that subscribe button. We break down this stuff every week in plain language, no jargon, just real insights about what's actually happening in the world of AI and tech. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.